KFI AM 640, Conway Show. And man, oh man, do we have a guest for you tonight, huh? Look at this.
Yes!
I've known this kid since he was born. I think I was at his house when he was brought home from the hospital, right? Because my dad and his dad were best of friends. They were friends in Cleveland, Ohio. Then they came out here to try to make it in Hollywood, and they both were very successful, right? And he's with us. He's a world-renowned, world-famous director. I think he's been up for 8 Academy Awards. I smell a couple more being added to that list. And we finally had an opportunity to work together, right? I was between movies, and, he was doing a movie. And here he is, Paul Thomas Anderson. How you, Bob?
How you doing, Timmy?
I'm doing excellent, man. Look at you. Man, what a huge hit you got on your hands, huh?
Feels good.
Oh, I
Feels
bet.
good right now.
I bet. You know what? I'll be honest with you. When we sat down at the Bruin Theater for the screening, for the premiere of the movie, right? I had no idea what it was about. Isn't that wild?
You knew nothing? I didn't tell you a little tiny bit?
You told me a little bit. I remember you and I ran into each other outside of Art's Deli, and we talked for about 20 minutes or so. And I said, and you told me a little bit about it, about what's going on. And you said, please don't tell anybody. And man, I zipped it. I didn't tell anybody about it. But man, what a sweet, great movie. The reviews are unbelievable. And man, it takes you back to a time where everybody who grew up in that era, through your movie, it felt for 2 hours and 20 minutes, however long it is, you felt like you were back in that time. And that is very difficult to achieve, but you did it, buddy.
Thank you, Timmy. I mean, well, I suppose it's a time you and I remember so well, and anytime we get together, we can access it so easily. And it was wild to create a situation where my kids they're such a big part of the film, you know, and it was taking them and planting them back in the time of our youth, you know, so seeing them dressed that way, explaining to them, the importance of not wearing a seatbelt, you know, in a car, all that kind of stuff. Right. It was time travel for sure. It was, a complete joy doing it.
It really was.
I remember when I asked you, I told you were going to play one of 2 parts. Do you remember that?
That's right. Yes. And I didn't realize I was going to play both parts, which was kind of cool. Hey, Paul.
Well, yeah.
Just for records, just to keep records here on your career and your directing career, have you ever had an actor in a movie play 2 roles?
Only once.
Is that right?
Only once.
In Licorice Pizza, Dig Dog.
I honestly, it was not just because of COVID that I didn't want to hire another actor. I thought you were good enough for 2 parts. I really did. Hopefully the audience, maybe they'll notice and then it won't matter, but hopefully they won't notice.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love the fact that you hired these 2 kids to be in this movie, and neither one of them had any extensive acting experience, and yet you pulled it off. It was unbelievable. I mean, who did you start with? You start with Alana, and then you added characters around her? Who did you start with?
That's exactly how it went. I started with Alana because she's in a band called Haim, and I've worked with them for a number of years, and she's got like an incredible natural talent. And it's one thing to be a rock star, you know, and it's another thing to be in a movie. I mean, we've seen good examples of it. We've seen some pretty sketchy examples of rock stars trying to be actors.
Right.
But she was just so good at it. And I would read this. I wrote the script with her in mind. I gave her the script. I read it aloud in the living room. And it was just clear to me, like, she's got it. She's going to be great. The Cooper part, you know, Cooper I've known, like you've known me, since he was born.
Wow.
I have a picture holding him. He must be about 2 or 3 days old. And he just has a natural way about him that's so magical, very empathetic, very social, very chatty, a lot like the character. I tested them together, and when they read it together, it just seemed it didn't seem wild to me at the time. Honestly, it seems a bit wild now. People say, "Oh, you made a movie with 2 of these unknown people," but what I was seeing in front of me, in the privacy of my living room was really magical. And the trick was making sure they didn't freeze. The worst case scenario would be like Pee Wee Herman in Pee Wee's Big Adventure when he's casted in his own movie and he's like mouthing the lines of dialogue from the other actors and staring into the camera. That kind of that's what it could have become. But right. There's always that nervousness if you have somebody in your life who who's very gregarious and sociable or something like that, that when a movie camera's on, they absolutely freeze and they kind of get frozen, which I have seen happen, but it didn't happen in this instance.
Right. Or you run into people like me who was given 3 lines and I could only really commit 2 of them to memory.
Well, that's where improvising comes in.
I guess so. But you know what? The 2 things, and I don't want to ruin the movie for anybody, but because these are in the promo, in the trailer, it is such a sweet reminder when you first fall in love with somebody and you're 14, 15, 16 years old, when you accidentally, or you're sitting at a table and your leg touches theirs and they don't pull their leg away, or they're sitting on the waterbed and their fingers touch each other and neither one of them pulls away. I know it seems like a small, insignificant thing, but man, that is so powerful, and it takes them back to their childhood when they first fell in love with somebody.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because that's exactly right. The tiniest movement is like an earthquake at that age.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm so happy to hear you point out those 2 moments, because I do like those as well.
It was great. I mean, when you're like 14 or 15 and you fall in love with, like, here's a perfect example. There was a girl named maybe I shouldn't use her name, but there was a girl in 3rd grade who I was falling in love with, and I was also in 3rd grade, right? And every day I went home and I picked up the phone to call her, and I didn't have the nerve to call her. I had her phone number, and for 3 months I didn't have the nerve to call her. And I also wrote down notes to talk to her about in case I froze, right? Mm-hmm. And so I finally call her, and her mom answers. And I said, "Hey, can I speak to your daughter?" Her name was Carrie. And she says, "Yeah, hold on one sec." And that seemed like a lifetime between the time, she said okay and Carrie got on the phone. She gets on the phone. I say, "Hey, it's Tim. I'm in your class." She goes, "Oh, it's so nice of you to call." At that exact moment, Marianne Conway comes around the corner and says, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "I'm talking to this girl in school." She goes, "You're in 3rd grade. You're not talking to girls," and hangs the phone up. I can tell you exactly where I was standing in that house when that happened.
I have a very similar story that I called a girl I was absolutely in love with. I finally, after many weeks, got the nerve to call her, and her mom picked up the phone. And I said, "Hello, is Sharon there?" And she said, "Yeah, hang on a second." And Sharon got on the phone. I said, "Hi, it's Paul." And she said, "Oh, can you just hang on a second? I'm going to go to my room." She had a phone in her room, which was already like very cool. Right. And so her mom picked up the phone to hang it up, when Sharon picked up the other line. And I absolutely froze. I held my breath so that I wouldn't make a sound, and I just didn't move. And I hear, after what felt like 3 minutes, which was probably like 10 seconds, I heard Sharon's mom say, "Boy, it sure is quiet on the other end of that phone." and then finally Sharon picked up, and the mom got off the phone. But it was painful memory. Painful.
Oh yeah, it does seem like a a marathon could be run in that time period. But Paul Thomas Anderson is with us. Another thing, speaking of telephones, another thing I picked up, and again, I've only seen the movie once, but I remember, back when, especially girls did this a little more than guys, but when girls were nervous on the phone, they used to always take the wire of the phone, the cord to the phone, from the phone to the the actual, and they would twist it around their finger and hold it very closely. And that's a huge deal. A lot of kids today, they don't have that, and they'll never have that. It's a big deal, though.
I mean, it's a very, very big deal. Expanding on that is the mystery that anybody that called you had no idea who was on the other end of that phone. So if you were anticipating a phone call from somebody else and the phone rang, you know, it was like Russian roulette. It was like, it could be one of your dad's friends. It could be anybody. It could, you know, it's like, who's calling, you know?
Right.
And inevitably, it was never anybody that you wanted.
No, and also when you had an answer machine, I mean, you'd see 3 beeps on the answer machine. It would light up 3 times. You go, I got 3 messages, and typically none of them were for you. No,
that's right. The joy of coming home and seeing that light blinking at all, you know,
right. That is great.
Like, somebody called.
Yeah, somebody called me? No. Someone called my dad, and my mom and the school called. All right, hold on 1 second. 1 second. I'm sorry. Paul Thomas Anderson's with us. We're talking about Licorice Pizza. It's open now in a few theaters. It opens on Christmas worldwide, or at least nationally. So you can go see it on Christmas almost anywhere. It's getting unbelievable reviews. People are already starting to talk about it with awards and related to award shows. It's unbelievable. And so we're going to talk more about this movie and come back. It is one of the most beautiful movies you could ever see. And it has nothing to do with that I'm in it or not. But it's just so beautifully shot. The kids are great in it. And there's no swearing. There's no sex in it. You can take your kids to it, even though it's rated R, and the whole family can enjoy it. And the whole family gets teleported back to the 1970s in the San Fernando Valley, but doesn't have to be the Valley. It could be anywhere in the 1970s in the United States. And man, you're there for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and that's worth every single dime of admission. Paul Thomas Anderson's with us. New movie, Licorice Pizza. Oh, yes. KFI AM 640, it's Conway Show. Paul Thomas Anderson is with us. Paul, that's the perfect song for the trailer and the movie. Everyone says that. How did you select that song?
I mean, how could you not select that song? Really, it was more that I was shocked that nobody had used it before us.
Wow.
So prominently. It's just a terrific tune, and it does a lot for our film in particular. And then, you know, when I saw it in the trailer, this great guy, Joel cut the trailer, and he put that on there. And you have to kind of check yourself, because anytime a movie uses a great song in a trailer, you have to be suspicious of the movie. You have to be wondering, like, what are you hiding
right.
by using such a good song? Like, is it because the movie? So we felt confident that we were, you know, not as good as the Bowie song, but we had enough to back it up. But for sure, always be suspicious when there's a good song in a movie trailer.
See, I'm 58. I've never heard that before, and 99% of the people are listening right now have never heard that either. But with you and these big directors, the people are in the same class as you. Is that known? If there's a really good song in the trailer, the movie might be a little shaky?
It might be. It kind of makes you a little nervous, you know, like.
That's great.
It's always something that you just have to raise an eyebrow at and go like, "Oh, okay." They used the Beatles. Imagine, the worst home movie could have Imagine over it. You'd be crying, thinking like, "God, what a great film! I'm going to see this."
It's so great. You know, speaking of movies, we have these old movies. I think I sent you some, but I've known Paul since he was born. Our dads were very good friends and best friends from Cleveland, Ohio. And I remember, your dad, my dad, the Egan's, Andersons, everybody, playing volleyball in the pool. And your dad, Ernie Anderson, could put together, because he had, I think, a total of, 7 kids total?
He had 9 kids.
9 kids.
Total.
He could, literally, he has the world record for setting up a portable crib. 8 seconds, man. Unbelievable. And he always used to brag about it, too, like, watch this, man. Right? Just bang. Sucker was open. Hey, Paul, I'm going to ask you a question. Again, Paul Thomas Anderson's with us. When you said to MGM that you're going to use 2 actors as the lead and none of them have any experience, what was their reaction?
Well, who else is going to be in it? And I said, well, don't worry. Sean Penn and Bradley Cooper will be in there.
Right.
You know what? They were okay with it. They trusted my judgment.
Good.
And I think after they saw the first couple days that we had shot, they felt really confident and they felt good the way that I did. So, yeah, I'm sure there was some nervousness on their part, but it was important for the story that you see two people that you don't normally see. It's exciting when you go to see a movie. Listen, it's exciting when you go to a movie and you see movie stars do what they do. But it can also be really exciting when you see somebody you've never seen in a movie before. It's kind of like a thrilling thing. It's almost like if you went to see if you went to see U2 and there was 25 people in the audience, you'd be like, hey, this is a good band. Somebody should listen to this. You know?
Well, I feel the same way. I purposely don't want to know any actors because when I go to a movie, I don't want to be distracted. Like when I went to see Saving Private Ryan, and then 3/4 through the movie, Ted Danson's in the movie. I'm like, this is a war where everybody knows your name? What's going on with this? It's very distracting.
It's funny, though. Maybe I thought that, but more interestingly is that when you learn about some of these famous actors who served in World War II, you hear about Jimmy Stewart piloting an airplane. You think, like, what did the rest of the crew think when they looked up and Jimmy Stewart is at the front of the airplane piloting this bomber? Right. How you doing, boys? Man, so these guys were actually there? So Ted Danson was actually there?
That's wild. I imagine, MGM is probably calling you every day saying they can't believe the reaction and the success. They must be on the phone with you all the time just thanking you.
They have been incredibly supportive, and I think that we felt really good about the film and really confident. And I must tell you, I've had that confidence before. And then you test drive something or you put it out into the world and you can get something back that is less than positive, And what's happening with the film is like all our wildest dreams have come true. The way people are responding to it. It's kind of like, I don't know whether it's the right film at the right time or what it is that's happening, but people are just absolutely going crazy for it. It's a great feeling.
Have you had this reaction on either like Boogie Nights or Magnolia or, The Master or anything like that?
Certainly on The Master, not. That was right. like a totally different film that people didn't know what to do with it. But Boogie Nights felt in a similar way, a kind of excitement. That's 25 years ago now. There Will Be Blood had a wonderful excitement about it. But this one feels particularly unique.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you can take the whole family to this one.
That's a first for me, for sure. I have not shown my kids Boogie Nights yet. Don't plan on doing it anytime soon. But they know this movie and they've seen it. So
right. But it was so great to see all those kids that you had in the movie at the theater for the premiere with their parents, and nobody felt uncomfortable. It was an R rating because of language. But there was no sex in it. There was no, bloody, killing or anything. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. Thank you.
It's always bizarre when you get your ratings back. You make a film and you send it to the ratings board, and then they, if you have, the mildest of language, you get an R rating back. And I learned a long time ago to stop fighting with the ratings board, to just take what you can get from them. But it is a little bit curious that it's rated R, but nonetheless, it is. And it's hard to explain why, but anyway.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey, Sharon said you can stay one more. The other Sharon, not your Sharon, not the one you were in love with. But can you stay just another 5 minutes? I got a couple more questions, then we'll let you go back to your beautiful family.
I'd love to.
Excellent.
Tim. I'd love to.
Okay, this is great.
Yeah.
All right, Paul Thomas Anderson, the director of Licorice Pizza, is with us. Man, is that a beautiful movie. And just to hear how humble he is talking about this movie, just saying, hey, we got lucky, we did this, and, sometimes it doesn't work out. It really, that says it all about this guy.
I'm just hearing him talk about it. I feel the same way he was talking about the how it feels, having this come in and the response he's getting. I feel as giddy and anticipating watching this movie as I was for Boogie Nights.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect. It's exactly what he wants.
Our love is a lie. And so we
KFI AM is 640. It's Conway Show. Paul Thomas Anderson's with us. He's the director and writer of Licorice Pizza. It comes out. It's out now in limited theaters, but it is going nationwide on Christmas Day. So your opportunity to see this. Hey, Paul, welcome back to the program. I got a quick story for you. I don't think I ever told you this, but first of all, I think the mother of your child, I call her your wife, Maya Rudolph, is in the top 2 funniest people in show business. I think Patricia Heaton and Maya Rudolph are like the same, out of the same brand, just hysterical always, even though they're not saying anything. But I remember sitting at my dad's house. You and Maya were there, and Maya was not drinking. This is not a booze fueled story. And she said to me, she goes, "You got a second?" I said, "Yeah." And I sat down next to her, and she said, "Is that the real Tim Conway who's sitting over there?" And I said, "Yeah, that's really him." She said, "And is that the real Harvey Korman?" And I said, "Yeah, that's really him." And she goes, "So that's really Don Knotts and that's Carol Burnett?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "I'm going to have to ask you again. I can't believe I'm sitting here on Christmas with these people." But she is so humble and was so appreciative, and she was like frozen to be at that Christmas party.
It's stories like those that help snap you back to reality for what we were surrounded by growing up, which I don't know. I don't think is lost on us, and I think we do appreciate it. But every time you say it out loud, you're like, I can't believe it. Like, you shared Dodger tickets with Harvey Korman? Like, yeah.
I've told this story many times on the air about Ernie sitting at Dodger Stadium, and the guy 8 seats deep is getting popcorn. He wants a malt. He wants a sponge finger. He wants popcorn, all that stuff. And we had to keep giving him money, and then the money goes down the row, gives it to the guy. He gives it the change. Then the product goes down the row. And Ernie, after a while, took the $100 bill. The guy ordered a popcorn, and he takes the $100 bill. He gives it to the vendor. He goes, "Keep the effing change, man."
The story that I remember clearest is picking up Sean to go to Dodger Stadium and encountering a lot of traffic. And Sean was probably sitting, on the hump, like I was in the passenger seat, and in the 1964 Studebaker Avanti that my dad drove. It was just like fumes coming back into the cockpit, and a cigarette, and like a tray with like his cocktail out, and my dad realized that we weren't going to make the game on time with the traffic. So he drove in the emergency lane, pretty much from Encino to Elysian Park. And I remember about halfway through, Sean saying, "I didn't know you could drive in this lane."
That is so great. Yeah, that's my youngest brother, Sean. That's a true story, man. That is unbelievable. But so many great stories. I've told the story about the Duke. Your dad had an autographed football from the 1955 Cleveland Browns, and everyone was drinking, and he said to Pat Studstill, who was a punter for the Rams and the Lions, man, anyone could do your job. And Ernie kicked it, went about 30 yards. Pat stepped into it, kicked it over the fence into the L.A. River, and the last thing you heard was your dad going, "Man, there goes the effing Duke." It's great.
Yeah, I remember that quite well. I remember the Duke quite well.
Hey, by the way, have you done for your kids what your dad used to do and get this snow ordered for the holidays?
No, but I tell them about it all the time. I haven't had, because what I realized is that the snow was a great idea, but the snow got hard in about 30 seconds.
Right.
So you would bundle up. It was about 90 degrees out. The snow would go on the lawn. It would be soft for about 25 seconds, and you came out with the one time a year you could actually wear like your snow gear and try to have a snowball fight, but you were essentially making rocks, like that you were throwing at your siblings. And then when the snow finally melted about 3, 4, 5 months later, the lawn was completely ruined.
Right.
And
right. No, I get it. Man, it was always so great to go to your house at Christmas because Ernie, Paul's dad, ordered like 4 or 5 tons of snow, and it was sprayed all over the front lawn, and everyone, all the kids in the neighborhood got together for what essentially was, rock fights. Right. Yeah,
he was friends with the guys at North Hollywood Ice, which I think is still there, just off of Vineland. And he would go to the guys at North Hollywood Ice and say, "Hey man, why don't you come over and put some snow on my my effing lawn there?" And they came over and they would take this huge ice block and put it into kind of version of a shredder, I guess.
Yeah.
And these guys would stand out there and spray the lawn.
It was great. But have you ever thought about, like, if our dads had ended up on the west side, like, we grew up in Santa Monica or, West LA or Pacific Palisades, we would have much different lives and be different people than we are.
I think that's absolutely true.
I love the fact that you stayed in the valley,
I mean, I love it. It's oh man. I mean, you and I both love it. We've obviously,
Sure.
I can remember as a kid thinking, well, I suppose I should get out of here, and maybe this is the thing that I'm meant to do is to get out of here. And for the 1 second that I decided to live somewhere else, I went to New York City for about 6 weeks. I said, I got to get back home. This is ridiculous. I don't like it here. I'm scared. I want to go back home to the valley.
It must
I
have
wouldn't
been
live anywhere else.
It must have been so fun decorating, just walking in to see how beautiful the sets are decorated back, and all of a sudden it's 1973 for your entire shoot day. That must have been so great.
It was great, but it was also you'd never want to say easy, but the wonderful thing about it is that you always knew how to answer any question that came your way. They would say, "Well, what kind of bikes are the kids riding?" You said, "He's got a Diamondback, he's got a Red Line."
Right.
What kind of shoes is he wearing? Jack Perry's.
That's
100%.
Great, that really is beautiful. But I can't thank you enough. Fortunately, I was between movies and available to do this. My last movie was 1989, so I had taken a little time off. And you pulled me out of retirement, buddy. I'm really glad you did.
Timmy, I hope we get a chance to do it again. I really, really do.
I really enjoyed it, man. It was the highlight of my adulthood. It really was. I mean, to see you work on the set like that. And look, I'm 99% sure I was at your house when Edwina brought you home from the hospital. I remember vividly, because you're a little, younger than I am. And I could honestly almost swear on people's lives that I was there that day when you came home. And it's been such a great relationship with the Andersons and Egans. And I'm glad that it didn't fade away, that when we still run into each other, it's, still talking about old times like that. It means a lot to us, man.
Oh, me too, Timmy. Really, 100%. I just love it. I love it. I hope you're never going to go away from my life. I love it.
and I can't go away from your life. Now we're forever. We're in this. I'm in this movie, Licorice Pizza.
I know.
It's so great. Just to see it up on the screen was really a treat. Paul, I appreciate it. You always have an open door here, and I'll run into you at Arts Deli.
See you there. Long live the Valley.
Yeah.
Thank you, Timmy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it, man. All right, take care.
Okay.
All
great.
right, there he goes, Paul Thomas Anderson. What a great guy, huh?
So awesome.
I love the fact that he said he left the Valley for like 6 weeks and had to get back to the Valley. The Valley is something, it just grabs you like that, There
are little things that I having never lived there, never really spent any sort of length of time there are enough things there that I can connect to as well from that time period where I was.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so great.